Hi, everyone. I'm Zoya Eunice,
And I'm Nessa Vora.
and we are the co-founders and hosts of the Synapse Podcast.
Today we're so excited to be joined by Layla, better known online as Layla in Yale.
So, Layla will be attending Yale University this fall to study global affairs and economics. Throughout high school, she's built an impressive career in public policy, advocacy, and leadership, while also sharing her journey with thousands of students online.
Layla, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. So nice to meet you both. I'm doing great.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. So to kick things off, why don't you give us a little introduction and tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Layla. I'm an incoming first year at Yale University, and as Leah mentioned, I am incredibly involved and interested in all things advocacy and public policy related. My main focus is regarding gun violence prevention, as I started the first Maryland chapter of Team Enough, a youth-led initiative to prevent gun violence, and have grown within the movement to be a statewide chapter leader, and am now officially on the Team Enough national organizing team.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how much of your work is centered around public policy, because I think that's such a unique thing for high school students to kind of invest themselves in. So, what was it that made you initially interested in public policy as a young student?
Absolutely. So I've always been really interested in anything related to politics, and that honestly started with me from a very young age. When I first started in high school, it was when I guess I could kind of explore a bunch of different topics around public policy, and I really, really got interested in kind of lobbying and advocacy work on a state level. And that's something that I was able to do with Team Enough. I had the opportunity to testify in the state legislature, host multiple statewide lobby days and advocacy days, and then also speak on different bills regarding gun violence prevention at press conferences and other events. And that just really doing that, kind of starting that in my sophomore year, made me really interested to continue that. And so I started seeking out other forms of advocacy and, public policy work, both within gun violence prevention, outside of the field. And I ended up being able to work on, women's issues in the state legislature and collaborate with other gun violence prevention organizations as well over the course of my high school career.
Yeah, that's amazing. What was your work with the legislature in terms of women's rights and things like that?
Absolutely. So I was on the policy team for the Baltimore County Commission for Women, so local county where I'm located in Baltimore. And we worked on kind of a variety of different bills that had to do with promoting women's health and just overall equity. One of the big things that we were able to do is pass a bill that would basically create training for truck drivers to identify signs of human trafficking. It was super rewarding. That bill eventually passed. And if we have a second, I can go and find something from that bill. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So I actually got this, which is from the governor's office, and it's basically like the pen that was used to sign the bill into law, which is kind of a super cool little thing. I just keep it on my desk, which is definitely a fun little testament to kind of the work that we put in. It's a really important bill, obviously. But we also did a lot regarding like domestic violence and access to healthcare and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool. I actually really, really like that. Working with Team Enough has clearly been a really important part of your journey in public policy and advocacy. So how has that experience shaped the way you think about public policy and the kind of work you want to pursue in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's honestly been an incredibly rewarding experience. I honestly don't think that all of the opportunities that I had over the course of my high school career would have been the same without Team Enough. It opened up a lot of doors for me, and it also just exposed me to so many different fields, like public health, and policy. I know it got me really interested in, kind of talking more about policy, like even outside of the advocacy sphere, but really looking at it through like a research backed lens. If you knew me, if there was a bill that I was like kind of writing testimony for, I would get holed up in my room and just write for, a whole day and do my research on it. And I honestly was exposed to so many different fields. Because the, firearm violence has an intersection with so many, different fields of life that it really broadened my perspectives and broadened my worldview. And I also just got to meet, so many amazing people, both on Brady and Team Enough's, team, but also with our partner organizations, and get kind of exposure to a ton of different careers, that are in the public health field or in the advocacy field and the organizing field. And honestly created like a second community for me. Anyone that knows I'm, love my Team Enough family, and I've loved, all of the kind of people that I've met through this whole experience.
Yeah, that's super cool. I can clearly see that like Teaming Up has opened so many doors for you. So just curious, where did you like find opportunities like this, and where'd you find Teaming Up, and what made you want to actually join it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually joined one of our welcome sessions. So we host welcome sessions every Wednesday, or maybe every other Wednesday. But they have been running for a very long time and will continue to run. And I joined one of them like 3 years ago now, unknowingly that it would totally change my life. I was really already passionate about a lot of issues, and like social justice issues, but so that kind of sparked my interest in seeing this, welcome session about fighting gun violence. And when I joined, there, talked about opportunities to start chapters. There wasn't anybody in Maryland doing that yet. And I wanted to take the lead. Obviously, I said I grew up, kind of outside of Baltimore. So gun violence prevention's always been something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I honestly, after that first initial meeting, we honestly just took off. I think after the first 6 months, we got a lot more folks around Maryland interested. And then, like I said, we were able to start, some sub chapters under the Maryland chapter, which was really amazing. And now that I'm on the national team, I have the opportunity to help high school students do the same thing in their communities. So one of my main role is actually working with students who want to start Team Enough chapters, and telling them about the process and guiding them along the way, which just honestly feels so full circle because that was me, just like 3 years ago in their shoes.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting how you started the whole thing from scratch. So relating to that, how did you find the opportunity from the very beginning? So how did you like find Team Enough specifically? And what made you decide to work with them rather than other extracurricular activities?
Yeah, so that was just through the welcome session. I think they posted it on Mobilize, which is just kind of like a platform that you can find and join events in your area. And from there, it was honestly just about kind of building a core group and then starting to get some events for when the school year started. And we were able to, have guest speakers, and we had a pretty big social media presence as well. So a lot of people joined from our social media.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
so
So, just like a question as like an upcoming sophomore, how do you like manage your time? Because I saw on your TikTok that you did both AP and IB, which I think are two both like rigorous programs, and doing them at the same time, like it definitely seems like a lot, as well as like Team Brady and stuff. So, what are your tips for like managing time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that I'm a very kind of type A person. So managing my time is very structured. I always kind of have like a notebook on me with a list of like my things to do. I add to it towards like throughout the day, and then I cross off things as I get them done. And then whatever doesn't get done from that day gets transferred to a new page for the next day. And I also kind of like label them by like priority. So I know if I have a homework assignment, due tomorrow, that was always taking the lead rather than a project that was kind of due at the end of the week. Um, Another thing that I really like to do is time block on my Google Calendar. So I have pretty much everything on my Google Calendar listed. And it helps me, plan time, even if it's not a meeting or if it's not like a formal event. I still will put, an hour towards Team Enough, from Sunday from 3 to 4, or I'll put 30 minutes to, like get ready for going out to dinner with my friends. Anything that I need to like make sure I have enough time to do is put on my Google Calendar. And that helps me just not lose track of items and assignments. And also helps me just not procrastinate or feel lost, because I know a lot of people just want to push things off, and that forces me to not push things off and like leave, structured time in my schedule to work on the things that I have to.
Yeah, that's definitely relatable. With the Google Calendar, I feel like that's such a good tool for students to use when organizing, because everything kind of gets out of track sometimes. But I was wondering what your experience with the IB program was specifically, because I know it's a notoriously hard program, so a lot of students are scared to approach it. How would you say that it helped you or did not help you in your high school career?
Yeah, so I would say that the IB program at my school is definitely pretty unique because we were a cohort of about 11 students. So I would say half of my classes were really just with those 11 students. And then the other half were still with the like larger kind of class, but still only those select few people that chose to do IB. And by chose, I mean like they just took a couple of classes, whereas I was, full diploma. Um, and I think it definitely made me a better learner and a better writer. There's like no denying that I came out of it a completely like changed student. But with that definitely came, the work that I put in to be that better writer and better student. It was definitely not an easy feat. I would say that if I were to do it all over again, I still think I would do IB, but I think that's also, I think for me, coming from a school that didn't have, really an IB profile, and most students, if they weren't committing for a sport, didn't really apply or get into Ivy Leagues. Having that IB profile definitely helped me kind of get my foot in the door to these schools. But, if I kind of knew that I was getting that same if I was just taking APs, I might have gone with the APs. I know like compared to my friends that just took like a full AP schedule, I definitely had some longer nights than they did. And it also depends on how much weight you put on the exams. Like if you're okay with kind of bombing your exams at the end, it's definitely easier. But when you're, second semester senior, it's that last, 2 weeks of school, and you have kind of like, I think I had 13 exams, my last like 3 weeks. So it was definitely a lot to just like even get the motivation to want to study and like pass these. And they're long. They're not fun exams to take.
I think that's a lot of exams. That's like 13 is a huge number. I can't even like imagine doing 13 exams and studying for them. Okay, so moving on to a bit of your social media, what made you decide to actually start posting on social media? And when did you start?
Yeah, so I started probably seriously posting right that like last month of school. Maybe that was like May, end of May. I honestly didn't expect for there to be like, I kind of expected to not, or let me restart. I didn't really expect for it to blow up. And by blow up, I mean, I know I'm not getting like a million, I don't have a million followers or anything, but I would say it's definitely more attention than I expected when I first started. I honestly kind of just did it as not a joke, but just to see like, hey, like, would anyone even like watch this? And then it definitely turned into like a way for me to like connect with students. And honestly, it's been really fun to just see like what people are feeling about, college apps in school, and getting DMs from folks that are, saying that one of my videos helped them, or they really, like felt hope, like watching something. And that makes me feel just like really like rewarding. I definitely didn't expect to get those kinds of DMs at all. And then obviously I've just been able to meet like cool people like you too, who've reached out through my socials, and gotten to do something that I had never really imagined. Like, if you even find my like personal TikTok account, I like never post. I even on Instagram, like I'm not really super duper active on my main accounts. So just, having this this is kind of really uncharted territory for me. And now it's honestly just been kind of a nice way also because I'm a broke college student. And I was a broke high school student. And now I see a little bit of an avenue with a little bit of a side hustle going on, with some other brands and stuff like that, which honestly I never expected either. But has been kind of really a pleasant surprise to ease some of my worries going into my first semester.
Yeah, I think your social media is actually like very helpful for high school students that are trying to be very ambitious. And I also commend you for the bravery that it takes to start a new account. So, continuing with your social media, do you see it opening any doors for you in the future in terms of your career, or do you think you'll keep it as somewhat of a hobby on the side?
Yeah, I definitely still see it as kind of something that I'm doing on the side or a side hustle. Like I said, I want to go into global affairs, maybe law school. So, I don't think content creation is my end all be all, but, definitely still want to kind of continue expanding it. I think there's a lot of cool connections that are being made and can be made, such as with you guys, but also I've been able to talk a lot about, Team Enough on there and get folks interested that way, which is awesome. And I want to be able to kind of continue, spreading the messages that I care about and helping folks.
Yeah, I think that like your social media, again, it's super helpful. Like when I saw it, I really wanted to bring you on like the podcast because like looking at it, like you had such great advice for people regarding like SAT, Team Enough, and so many other things. So moving on to our next question. So many students dream of going to like Yale or other Ivy Leagues. So looking back on your high school years, what do you think made your application stand out beyond just grades and test scores?
Absolutely. So I think kind of it's so competitive now, on a level that is really kind of unfathomable. There's so many hundreds of really qualified applicants every year that just don't get in. And sometimes I look at folks that, didn't get in and compare them to myself. I'm like, wow, like, why did I take your spot? Or like, why did I get in? Just because there's really, really, it honestly feels like a gamble. But I do think that something that has like stood out, is that, like you said, not only do you have like the grades and the test scores, but there's a very clear arc or a spike. And I'm sure you guys have heard those words kind of thrown around, when talking about framing your application with an arc or a spike. And I think that did really, play to my strengths. I have my ECs posted and my stats posted, but I was very, very policy focused. I was really doing everything I could that was relating to, my interests and then eventually my major. So although Yale doesn't have a public policy major, I applied pretty much everywhere besides Yale as a public policy major. So I was really, and that kind of also came through in my essays. Everything in my essays was very, social justice oriented and talking about, why I'm so interested in, doing the work that I was doing in my high school and what I want to continue doing. And, I always say that, admissions officers, they can draw like a line from each of your essays to your awards, to your activities, to your essay, or I think I said essays, but like basically draw a line between each part of your app and be able to connect it to something else in your app that way, whether that be like your background, your lived experience, or like your hobbies and that kind of thing. And I think that's really helpful because it shows them that, what you're doing is not just kind of random, but it's doing something because your like heart is into it. And the impact. I think another big thing is impact. So I was able to really talk about, the people that we've reached through Team Enough, and the work that I did also with, within the city of Baltimore around gun violence prevention, which I did as a research intern, we worked on implementing like screening questions in the hospital, basically, if you're admitted into the ER, to basically be screened for risk of firearm violence. And if you like basically answered yes to any of the screening questions, you'd be connected to resources. And this was done for everyone. So not just if you were coming in with like a GSW or a gunshot wound, or something related to, violence. It was done for anyone that was being admitted to the ER, even if you're just coming, for some chest pain or like a broken bone. And that way we kind of got to reach wider audience of people. And I think having kind of, obviously those two, and then I don't have to go into the other stuff on my app, that really showed impact was really important. And I think I've had the opportunity to talk a lot about lived experiences in my essays. That was something that I really tried to focus. And this was done like not only in my personal statement, but also in my supplementals, and just try to be really unique with what you're talking about. I think for me, whenever I read an essay, I would kind of think to myself, could anyone else have written this essay? And if the answer was yes, I had to change something about it. And that's something that I also like give advice to underclassmen now. When they ask me about essays, I know everyone's really stressed about personal statements right now, is if you read that statement and you're like, could anyone else have written this essay? And if the answer is anything but no, only Layla could have written this essay, you have to change something about it, because that's what makes you stand out in, a room of applicants and a pile of different folders, is when they read something that they're like, oh wow, like this is an identity, or this is a like personality that like we have not seen, or like this is like a unique application file, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's like really good advice. And I also think that your application specifically is a testament to how following what you love to do can actually benefit you, rather than, some students focusing on what will universities like or want, instead of what you want, what you think you'll be doing as a future career. So just to end us off, I wanted to ask, if you could leave high school students with one piece of advice about building a meaningful career while they're still young, what would that be?
Yeah. Try everything. I went through kind of so many hobbies and, different activities and things that I thought I wanted to do, before I kind of stuck with those core, extracurriculars or activities that I stuck with. Um, and I think that there's, so much to be said about just being a like well-rounded person and have like being knowledgeable about a like wide variety of things. And I think especially in today's climate, it's so important to be like an educated person. I'll go one step further, talking to the girls out there, it's really important to be an educated woman. Because your knowledge and your education is something that no one can ever take from you. So honestly, like, I've done all these activities, I've done all of this, but what is like most meaningful to me is honestly like the personal growth. And I think high school is a time where everyone should really, focus on the external growth as well, because that's, it's important and it's necessary for the climate that we live in, but focus on the internal growth as well. Of like taking time to know, like, what do you like, what do you want? What do you, prioritize in your life, and do that by like really like reflecting upon yourself, like reading and just learning about the world in every way that you can. I think that is probably like one of the most rewarding things that you can do, even just outside of, joining clubs or doing research or whatever kind of the generic stuff is, but just building yourself internally as a person as well.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely think that's a really good piece of advice. Like internal growth and external growth are super important, and trying everything you can, and especially like for women, being educated. So thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. The information that you gave us was so helpful. And since I'm like going to be a sophomore next year, I'll definitely be using all of this like feedback that you've given me to hopefully get into a good university as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, guys. It was super fun. And I'm really grateful you reached out. I hope you got something out of it. But no, I'm super impressed with both of you. I think honestly, like having this like setup and everything was so professional. And I mean, you're only going into your sophomore year, which is crazy. Do you want to do something in like media related? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I kind of want to do something in like computer science or software engineering, but I also do really like marketing and media and like video editing and those type of things.
Super cool.